Hello and welcome to another episode of the Field of 68's off-season grades. My name is Rob Dosser. I have John Martin here with me, and we are going to be breaking down the off-season that was experienced by the Gonzaga Bulldogs. A little bit of turnover on the roster, but not as much turmoil as you see with some of these other programs that had some pieces change, right? Uh, Ryan Nemhard graduated. Nolan Hickman graduated. Those are two stalwarts of the program. Ben Gregg, I think he actually entered the portal, but technically speaking, the dude graduated, right? You lost Michael Ajayi to Butler. You lost Khalif Battle, who was there for 1 year, but he graduated as well. But for the most part, like you got back a couple of key pieces that you wanted to get back in Braden Huff and Graham Ike. Emmanuel Innocente is back, the junior who is one of the best defenders in that league. We might actually see Steel Venters play for the first time as a Gonzaga Bulldog after tearing his ACL and tearing his Achilles. And you bring back Braden Smith, who redshirted last season. You get in Jalen Warley, who redshirted last season. And you made the addition of Adam Miller from Arizona State and a guy who I think is, and this is going to be a little spoiler for what's happening later in the video, maybe the biggest X factor in all of college basketball in Tyon GrantFoster. I think my favorite part about this team, though, John, is there is a freshman on this team, a 6'7" freshman. His name is Davis Fogel. They got a dude named Fogel on this roster. Do you know why I love the name Fogel?
Why do you love the name Fogel?
Because it makes me think of the movie Superbad. Because that dude, McLovin's actual name was Fogel in that movie. So
I actually did not know that. I would not have remembered. That's a good trivia question. What was McLovin's actual name?
So we're gonna have to start calling him Davis McLovin for from now until the end of the college basketball season. What do you make of this new look Gonzaga roster? I'm pretty excited about it, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to like, man. I think you start with that front court. I mean, when you can go into a season and bringing back, a guy in Graham Ike who obviously at times for them was quite dominant. I definitely believe that you're at an advantage. So I think that's a really good place to start. You pushed Houston there in the NCAA tournament in the second round last season. So, you're bringing back a lot of those pieces. I think there's a lot to like, but I don't know, like it's a mystery in some ways. Because you're talking about, Braden Smith, okay, red shirt. Steel Venters, we've never seen him. He's coming off the ACL. We haven't seen him. It's very possible that those guys come in and are awesome, but we don't know that. Like we don't have any, we don't have any reason to believe it won't happen, but we also don't necessarily have any reason to believe that it will. Tyon GrantFoster is, he produces. That's what he did every year there at Grand Canyon, and he's going to come in, and I think his impact will be very obvious. Adam Miller's an interesting piece. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of his game, although he is so old that is also an advantage for Gonzaga. I don't think I would have ever thought that Adam Miller would be a Mark Few guy. I just watching him play, I never saw him as that, last year at Arizona. I feel like he got ejected for like spitting on a guy last year in one of those games. But that's really neither here nor there. We're not defined by the worst thing we've ever done, Rob. Okay. We're just not. So I like it, but I do think there's some mystery. I could sort of see this going a couple of different ways, I guess is how I would bottom line it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it too, right? To me, it was the process of putting this roster together makes sense in terms of what Mark Few was looking for, right? Like if you kind of look at the teams that he's had that have the most success, he needs a point guard that really understands how to operate ball screens. He needs a guy that is really good at scoring in and around the paint, because what they want to do is they want to sprint and transition. They want to throw ahead to get to get a rim run, a big guy, a post touch. If that doesn't work, they kind of get into this ball screen continuity offense that relies on their guards being able to make plays with the balls in their hands. And then around those two positions, they want a bunch of talented wings that can make threes. And I think Braden Smith is a guy that, in theory, with a year kind of working within this system, should be able to step in and be pretty good. He's not the Braden Smith from Purdue. He's the Braden Smith from Colgate, but he's a guy that averaged 13, 5, and 5 as a sophomore at Colgate in the 23-24 season. I would expect him to come in and be able to not quite be as good as Ryan Nembhard, but I don't think he's going to be that much of a drop off, right? Graham Ike is in his 37th season of college basketball. We know what he is. Braden Huff is an absolute bucket. I don't know if you play those two together. I think it's one of those situations where they each get about 20 minutes a game at the five. But I like that combination of players there. My biggest question is, how does it work with Jalen Warley and Tyon GrantFoster? How do they fit together? How do they how do you play them on the floor at the same time? Can you play them on the floor at the same time? And do you have enough shooting out of those two? Jalen Warley's not a shooter. He's like a 6'7" point guard. Part of the reason why we were excited about Virginia last year before Tony Bennett left was the addition of a 6'7" point guard kind of a player in Jalen Warley, right? Um, and then Tyon GrantFoster was a dude 2 years ago, was maybe the best mid-major player in college basketball, right? A
Yep.
guy that has first-round NBA talent. Um, for people that don't know his story, he started at Kansas, transferred to DePaul, started at a JUCO, goes to Kansas, leaves Kansas, goes to DePaul. The halftime of the first game, he played at DePaul as a junior in the 21-22 season. His heart stops in the locker room. He's revived. He misses, I believe it was 2 seasons that season and the next season. He's able to come back, averaged 20 points as a junior at Grand Canyon. Then as a senior last year, he averaged 14. Numbers went way down. Efficiency went way down. And now he's a super senior. He's going to be 26 years old this year, but first round caliber, like NBA talent. And I think that hoping what you can get out of him is that level of play. So I just don't know how those two work when you don't have the shoot. Like neither of them are shooters, right? Where does the floor
Right.
spacing come from? How are you going to be able to get touches for Graham Ike? Can you play those two bigs together? Can you play one of Worley or Tyon GrantFoster at the four? Like I just those are the questions that I have. How does all of that come together?
Yeah, and real quick, let me correct the record on Adam Miller. It was not spitting on a player; it was reportedly slapping a player, and that player being Doug McDaniel. So just wanted to get that out. That was
Was it really?
yeah, that was against Kansas State. They ejected him in that one, which is it's fine. It's edge. But I don't know. You tell me. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob. But it just kind of feels like as you're going through this roster and all the things that you're wondering about, shooting and cohesiveness and all this, it just feels like we've never really seen this under Mark Few in terms of you know yeah, it's a lot of turnover. It's a lot of new guys. Like I feel like one of the staples with Mark Few over the years has been like there's always a guy or two massive contributor that's back. And I guess in this case you could say, oh, that's Graham Ike. And that's true. But like it usually feels like there's at least a guard or two that is retained, from over the years that, you can point to and say, all right, he's the steadiness, you know. And I think that's the question I do have about Gonzaga is like, who is the steadying force with this? I mean, it could be Steele Venters, even though he didn't play. He's been in the program for a couple of years. Braden Smith didn't play, but he's been in the program a couple of years. Like that could still be the case, but it just feels like this is new territory a little bit for Mark Few in that he doesn't have that
Well,
continuity.
that's why that's where my comfort zone is in saying that I think they'll be pretty good is because Braden Smith has spent a year within that locker room in that system, redshirting, practicing with them. Same thing with Jalen Warley, right? Like I feel like they have bodies there in the backcourt that at least know what is expected out of them. And then Braden Huff and Graham Ike are kind of your tone setters, especially Ike, man. Like he ever like 17 a game last year.
Yep.
To me, the biggest X factor, and is one of the biggest X factors in college basketball, is Tyon GrantFoster. If he gets back to what he was in the 23-24 season, when Grand Canyon was everybody's pick to be like the first round upset, when he was everybody's pick to be like the guy that could have a Steph Curry kind of a run in the NCAA tournament, if he gets back to being that guy,
Yeah.
then it's a very different conversation for what Gonzaga has the potential to be. Um, and I think he's got the ability to do it. It's just a question of whether or not it comes to fruition. And one thing I'll say is this, and you know this, right? since 2016, Gonzaga has not finished outside the top 12 in Ken Palm's like final rankings, right? Last year was the first time since 2014 that they did not make the Sweet 16. It was, I
Yep.
believe, 9 straight tournaments that they or 10 straight tournaments they made it to the Sweet 16.
Yep.
And last year, what it took for them to not make the Sweet 16 was as the number 8th ranked team on Ken Palm, they got an 8 seed and they got Houston,
Yes.
who makes it to the national title game, comes a possession away from winning a national title. Houston beat them by 1 possession, more or less, right? I think it was a 5-point game, but it came down to
Right.
the
Right.
final possession.
Right.
Gonzaga
Yep.
had the ball with a chance to tie late in that game. That's what it took for Gonzaga's run of Sweet 16s to end. And how many times during that stretch did we look at them and say, yeah, I don't know. There'd be times in February where we look at Gonzaga and we said, I don't know if this is the group. I don't know if this is the team. I don't know if they've got it this year. And they
Yep.
got it that year. Like Mark Few is just going to find a way to get it done. And I'll tell you this, he's got a point guard, he's got a
Yep.
5-man, and he's got talent on the wings. I don't know if
Yep.
it's necessarily the ideal structure for how he would want to build a roster, right? But he's got guys that are 26 years old and good enough to be pros. I'm in. I'm in on this Gonzaga team. I think that they are a considering what they lost, I think that they are a top 15 / top 20 kind of a team in college basketball. I don't know how much more you could ask when you lose what they lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. I mean, if there's any coach in America that deserves the benefit of the doubt with a little bit of uncertainty on the roster, it's certainly Mark Few. I mean, you mentioned it. Basically going to the Sweet 16 every year for a decade. That's just an unbelievable run. And I know it's not a championship, and everybody gets hung up on those. I mean, Matt Painter's gone through this. Obviously, Matt Painter is one of the elite coaches in college basketball. Just because he doesn't have a championship next to his name does not preclude that from being true. And the same is true of Mark Few. So if anybody deserves the benefit of the doubt, is absolutely him. And you're right. Like, we're going to look up, and it's going to be February, and Gonzaga is going to be a top 20 team, and they're going to go to the NCAA tournament, and they're going to be, a very live team to make a second weekend run. So yeah, I mean, it's just like, all right, what does it look like? It's not like, oh, I think Gonzaga, here comes Gonzaga's downfall. Here it comes. It's not really, that's not what we're talking about. It's just like, all right, how is the sausage going to be made, so to speak, for this Gonzaga team?
Well,
it's also,
it's not just that. It's also, they've deservedly so. The expectation is that Gonzaga is in the mix for national champions, right? Like when we over the last decade, when we go into a season, you're thinking Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, Kansas, and there's a bunch of other teams in that mix, but like Gonzaga's right there.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like that they are in that conversation as one of the 10 best programs in America. So when you're looking at a season where they are maybe not quite in that top 10 heading in, then you ask questions. And it's not because we don't think that they're a great program or Mark Few's a great coach or they have a chance to be able to make it back to the Sweet 16. It's like, well, you had a run where you did not finish outside of the top 2 on Ken Palm for 4 straight years, right? There was a run where in the span of 4 tournaments, you made it to 2 national championship games. You've been to like 5 Elite Eights in the last 9 years. We're allowed to, when you head into a season as more of like a top 15-ish, top 20-ish kind of team, say like, yeah, this isn't kind of your typical Gonzaga. They're still going to be good, but it's not the Gonzaga. This isn't like Chet Holmgren, Jalen Suggs, like that kind of a group.
Well, he set the bar so high.
Exactly.
I mean, for himself. So it's like when it's a little, and when it's like even a little, and honestly, how many programs are able to say, yeah, we're bringing back our, top 2 bigs and Braden Huff and Grant? Like, how many teams in the age of the portal are able to say that? Not many, would be my guess. But yeah, look, I think just to go back to kind of how we started this thing, there's a little bit of mystery, a little bit of uncertainty. You're pricing in, all right, Steele Venters is going to be the guy, we believed he'd be a year ago before the injury. Braden Smith's going to be ready. You're sort of pricing these things in. And if those things don't come to fruition, I think it is going to be a little, again, relative to Gonzaga standards, it is going to be a little touch and go if those things don't happen.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. Yeah, there's a lot of what ifs. Does Braden Smith adjust everything you just said? Is Adam Miller going to be the guy that he was coming out of high school? Is Tyon GrantFoster going to be the guy that he was a year ago? Is Steele Venters going to be the guy he was 2 years ago? Is Braden Smith going to be the guy that he was 2 years? Like, there's a lot of what ifs there. But if it all hits, they have the pieces there to be able to get wherever they want to be. I don't know if they're in that conversation. So to me, when you look at college basketball this year, it's the basically the top 12 can all, you shuffle them all together. You got Purdue and Houston at the top, and then everyone from, like, in my top 25, from Florida to Michigan. There's 10 teams in that group, and you can shuffle them anywhere. I don't think Gonzaga is quite in that mix, but if you're going to tell me they're the best team outside of those top 12, I don't think I would argue with it. If you had to set expectations for this group, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think be a Sweet 16 team, be a second weekend team. I don't think that's too outrageous. I mean, I feel like it's too much of training wheels to say just make the tournament, right? I don't really think that's where Gonzaga basketball should be measured.
No, it's Gonzaga, man.
Yeah.
What
so
are we talking
I think
about making the tournament? No.
Yeah,
I think second weekend or bust.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if they make a Sweet 16 appearance, it's a really good year. I mean, and obviously when you get there, I mean, anything can happen. You can be a Final Four team. You can win the whole damn thing. But I think, yeah, if you survive, top, 4 seed, Sweet 16, that sounds like a good year to me.
Yep. Grade for the off season for you.
I would say B plus. That might be a little short even. I mean, obviously getting back your bigs in Huff and EK, adding Tyon GrantFoster, who, if we can get back to that form, will, I think, improve this grade. I don't know if there was a whole lot more to do. It doesn't feel like an A, but it feels like a very, very, very solid B plus offseason for Gonzaga. Maybe that's low.
Yeah, I have B plus too, and I'm sitting here saying, like, I feel like I'm probably low on this. Based off, I mean, like, you got the
we're gonna get ripped. B plus.
Yeah.
What do you mean B plus?
Well, it's B plus with upside, right?
Yes.
And that's because, as we mentioned, you are taking some gambles here, right? You're taking some gambles on Jalen Worley. You're taking some gambles on Braden Smith. Like, going from playing in the Patriot League to playing at the highest level of college basketball is a big leap. I think he can do it, but that is a big leap to make. You're betting on Tyon GrantFoster being the guy that he was 2 years ago. That's a leap of faith. Steele Venters, I'll just be honest. After 2 years off with a torn ACL and a torn Achilles, I'd be shocked if he's the same player.
That's fair.
I want him to be. I'm rooting for him, but I'd be shocked. So I think a B plus is fair. And they're a top 20 team in America, right?
Yep.
They're not the top 6 team that they've been over the course of, the last decade, but things happen.
I mean, Gonzaga basketball rolls out of bed every single year, and they're a top 20 team. Like, there are worse things you can be in this life.
Like a Memphis basketball fan?
Like, exactly. That's about the bottom.
Yeah. All right, listen, man. This was fun. I'm rooting for Gonzaga here. There's a lot of players on that roster that I like, and obviously Mark Few is a coach that both of us really, really enjoy. If you enjoy these off-season grades, we have about 45 or 50 of these coming in the pipeline, so make sure you subscribe to the Field of 68 YouTube channel to be able to get these throughout the month of July and the month of August. For John Martin, my name is Rob Doster. See you guys on the next episode.